You are watching a master at work.
That would be me. Yes. Welcome. Can you hear me, Marvin? Okay. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you to another episode of Hidden Figures, Behind the Numbers with the Restaurant Scientist. I am Jason Wallace, and I am the Restaurant Scientist. I'd first like to thank our sponsors, Cornerstone Business Labs, Cornerstone Production, and Cornerstone Media. So today's guest, I have Tamoura Jones, who is the chair of the Culinary Arts and Hotel, Restaurant, and Travel Management Program at Atlanta Technical College. Tamoura, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So, Tamoura, tell us a little bit about, what inspired you to get into the industry. What were your motivations? Where'd you grow up? Things of that nature.
Okay, well, as I have coined myself, all things hospitality, I've always had a love for making people feel welcome, making people feel comfortable. It's amazing to see how people connect, over food, over events and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when my plans to go to law school fell a little short, I was encouraged to pursue my passions. And one of those things was culinary. I love to do it. And that was something that I said, if I did it, I wouldn't care if I got paid for it because it was something that I like to do. So my journey started very young, going to culinary school. I went to a technical school, and from there I went to Johnson & Wales and worked in the industry. I, have just always loved how food and the whole dining experience made people feel.
Right.
And so I'm blessed to have been able to translate that into a career,
right.
And for it to be, a passion and a love of mine. And, maybe a little later, I talk about how that has evolved so that it works more so on my terms, but it's just always been in me. My mother, she cooks for an army, she's 6 siblings, and, she just cooked massively, and Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day, everything was a feast. And just watching her and my dad in the kitchen cooking together was something that just kind of came natural for me.
Got you. So in 2012, I heard you was recognized as Instructor of the Year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, so that was one of the highlights in my career. And I look back, with pride on that because it was just at a place where I was at a crossroads. I had been teaching for 3 years after coming out of industry, and Hurricane Katrina kind of is what pushed me into the education side because I planned on working in industry a lot longer than I did. But
Gotcha.
I always say that, my career, my path, my job found me, and I was recognized, only because, hey, it's something that I love to do, and I believe that it showed. And I'm just glad that, my peers were able to recognize that. So it's definitely a highlight for me, in my path, in my tenure, but there have been so many.
Right. Well, congratulations. Clearly, we have mutual friends in the industry, and let's shout out Johnson & Wales University, fabulous school, J&W.
Yeah.
I know many Johnson & Wales alumni. Much respect to them. Very, very knowledgeable individuals, and just good, solid food service and hospitality professionals. So on my podcast, quite often I always say restaurants and food service and hospitality, and people don't understand that the food service and hospitality space is so vast, so large.
It is.
Where, because we get into this game and we think we have goals of here and visions of that. And then when we get in and we realize that as we age and mature, both professionally and personally, that our skill sets and our passion may force us, and quite often does force us, to pivot. But the beautiful thing about the food service and hospitality industry is that you don't have to leave the entire industry to switch lanes. So
Exactly.
You have restaurants, you have commercial contract feeding, you have colleges and university feeding, then you have the whole hotel, travel, and
Yes.
tourism spectrum.
Yes.
Can you speak a little bit about that as a whole, the industry as a whole, and particularly about the hotel, restaurant, travel, and tourism component?
Sure. So let me first say that combined under the umbrella of hospitality and tourism,
Mm-hmm.
we actually are part of the world's largest industry because within the hospitality industry, you have food service, you have managed services, people that are cooking out of the military or hospitals. You
Mm-hmm.
have the gaming and casino sector. Parks and recreation actually fall under our industry.
Right.
Hotel and lodging is a part of that too. So there's so many different components that it is actually the world's largest industry. And one of the things that I love about it and why I say all things hospitality is because it is a pathway for people who like evolution and like to evolve.
Right.
You could attest that someone may have started off washing dishes and
Mm-hmm.
now they're the general manager of a five-star property.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how it's been for a lot of the general managers for you and I's generation.
Right.
So it's a lot of opportunity and it's global.
Right.
I tell my students all the time, you're competing globally because hospitality minorities, we only make up 18.2% of the industry.
Wow.
Okay. 18.2%. And I remember when I was in undergrad reading a book in my economics class, and they said by 2010, that 50% of the food service industry was going to be Spanish speaking. Now, that was 2010. It's 2021.
Right.
So we have surpassed that statistic.
Right.
And so it's very important for us to know that we're still just a small representation of this vast industry. And it's so very vast. Like I said, parks, people don't think about the parks, inbound tourism, when you can't go anywhere, when you're traveling to, cities that are outside of your city. And due to COVID, COVID has actually created opportunities and growth, for these sectors and segments of the industry to flourish.
Wow.
I've been to St. Mary's, Georgia 3 times, and I learned something so new about a place that's 4 hours away from where I've lived most of my life,
Wow. Yeah.
So it's very vast. And, I just encourage people who, if you get tired of a certain area, explore, and evolve. And that's what I did. I started in a kitchen, but I knew very quickly that, I wasn't going to be slinging pots for 20 years,
Gotcha.
and
Absolutely.
I wanted to learn the business side of it. I wanted to negotiate. I wanted to talk with clients and things of that sort. And this industry really does give you room to play up to a lot of your strengths.
So walk me through some of the career path options. So particularly the higher, the executive level, because I think that, as 13% of the population, United States population, but yet, less than 7% of those not even 7, less than 3% of the executive level jobs. So what are some of those jobs that you may be able to speak to that, your school kind of teaches towards and prepares people to ascend to?
So this is really a passion of mine. Going into the education sector really was full circle because being chair over a program that I actually was in, nobody would have ever told me when I was burning stuff in that kitchen that I would be sitting in my teacher's desk, over that program. Nobody could have told me that. So it's full circle. And what blessed me the most was the fact that I was able to come back to give back to people that were at a disadvantage as myself. In those marginalized areas where you don't necessarily get exposed to APA writing and things like that. When I went to Johnson & Wales, I struggled. I really struggled because I did not have all of the skills to do what my peers were doing because, that was the type of education that I had. When I came back to technical education, I said that, hey, there is no MBA board meeting. Either you know the numbers or you don't.
Right.
You know how to read this report, you know how to forecast, you can
Right.
foresee things or you don't.
Right.
And so part of our mission in a technical college setting is to make people workforce ready. So
Okay.
we make sure that we give students exposure and experiences so that they can stand shoulder to shoulder
Right.
with people that do not look like them,
Right.
and so that they are competent in every way. And we tell them from the moment they step through our doors, you no longer represent yourself.
Right.
You represent your college, you represent your teacher, you
Right.
represent your chair, you
Right.
represent your college president. Because if you do something, it's not going to be, oh, Keisha did this. It's going to be that student from that school did
Right.
this.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
so we transform lives. At the institution I work, we transform lives through technical education. We're a preacher, a teacher, a rabbi, a nurse, a therapist on a good day, you
I
know?
like it.
So we're doing all these things, but we're giving the soft skills to our students, which is an underserved population, to make sure they are very well rounded. And an example of that is that we have the hospitality, we have so many specializations, from the front desk to food and beverage director to travel agent specialist to catering, to you name it. The sky's the limit. We have so many credentials built within our diploma and our degree, so
Right.
that a student is very well versed. And if a student expresses an interest in a particular program, or a particular segment of the industry, we partner with people. And we have had wonderful active partners and board members. We have official partnership with Atlanta Food and Wine Festival,
Okay.
Taste of Atlanta, you know, the who is it? The Commerce Club, you know, Club Corps,
Right.
which is prominent. I remember when I was a student and I worked on Kiowa Island, I was the only Black girl in there,
Right.
that was interning, and they were skeptical about even giving me that internship site because they didn't think I knew how to hold my tongue right, you know.
Right.
But you know, I got through it and I got an A, and
Right.
you know, after that, they understood that everybody, you know, is not cookie cutter. You can't put everybody in a box, and that really taught me, you know, a lot. So being able to be there for our students, to give them an opportunity, to give them a chance, and to partner with companies that will help afford them those opportunities,
Absolutely.
it's very rewarding. It's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. Do you guys provide any other wraparound services that, other than the education that a student may need to help them navigate external influences that may be preventing them from coming to class on
Absolutely.
time, coming to
Yes.
class not hungry, things that,
Yes.
all of those real world experiences?
Yes, so we've, had a lot of food drives as a result of COVID. We've been giving students access to the internet, Wi-Fi hotspots, you name it. That is who we are, and that is what we do. So again, it's a very holistic approach to education. So it's not that students just come to school. We have the foundation, the Atlanta Technical College Foundation, in which we have gap funding, and this funding helps pay students balances. A student will say, you know what, I didn't know I had 2 classes left, and they've maxed out their aid. And so as a result, the gap funding that people donate and provide allows for students to be able to get books,
Right.
uniforms, all of that.
Wow. That's good stuff. So in terms of where the industry and the job opportunities are now, what are you seeing? What is the industry asking you for? What type of student are they looking for you to release out into the industry for them?
Good question. So that's so multifaceted, because one of the things that we do is we have a solid advisory board. And the purpose of the board is to tell us, hey, what do you want, you know, in an employee? And they tell us, and based on that, we incorporate them into what we call pineapple talks, or lunch and learns, or roundtables, to really get them to talk to the students to see where they are and say, hey, this is what my company and my employer is looking for, and this is what you need to have and produce when you come through our doors.
Right.
another beautiful opportunity as a result. I don't care if anybody says COVID has been working for me. Um, it's working for our industry because with the whole George Floyd piece and all the different things, and um, you know, the industry had to step up. Uh, and the diversity and inclusion piece is massive.
Right.
And so companies could no longer deny this. And I'm so glad that that button was pushed because you and I know we had to create our own path because
Absolutely.
you could work as hard as you want, but if you were not a J1 or you weren't sleeping with somebody,
Right.
where
Right.
were you going to go?
Yeah.
Where were
Exactly.
you going to go?
Right.
And you couldn't relate to everybody that way.
That's
And
right.
I remember a Caucasian lady told me, she said, you got to map out your own path, sweetheart. She says, success and promotion may be in the form of getting another job and not just waiting for the boss to say, well done,
Right.
and that's what it was. So we're at an advantage right now because diversity and inclusion is so big. We have partnered with IHG. They have a wonderful program called Next Steps, and it's specifically geared toward exactly what you said, making sure that that minority population, particularly African Americans, have the opportunities
Right.
to get experience, get exposure, to acquire the jobs, to retain the jobs, and
Right.
to advance on the jobs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And mentoring is a big part of that,
Yes,
because without someone that looks like you and that you
yes,
can relate to, because there's a trust factor that
mm-hmm.
we don't have
Yeah,
with America,
yeah,
and rightfully so. So therefore, we come into the industry or into a job already not knowing who to trust because it is a business environment. But then when you
right,
have those cultural gaps as well, then
absolutely.
that trust factor is even is greatly impacted even more. So the mentor component is another piece that I've seen that is extremely important in making sure someone is successful in their ability to identify career goals
Yes,
annually, manage their time appropriately because time management is a part of that, and then
hmm,
again being able to ascend and taking the
yeah,
right route because not
absolutely.
taking what was or still may be the black route, which mean okay, in order
Yeah,
to get to mid-level management, you got to work 10 years where non people of color can get there in 5 years. So
yeah, yes,
that's what again we have these types of candid conversations because we know that the implicit biases and social and systemic racism still exists, and we can't fight
absolutely.
that at every battle, but
I
we can prepare
remember
ourselves for
being
it.
told that I could not apply for a position at another property because my bank was short in the last 6 months or something silly like that.
Uh-huh.
But they had the wrong sister because I didn't come in the door just getting a job and sitting there for 10 years. I came in with an MBA, so I had enough in me to know, okay, that doesn't really sound right. But the fact that they're feeding me this means that they're used to a mentality that doesn't fight back.
Right.
Now I did my job, and I focused on what I could change, my locus of control, and an opportunity came for me to get promoted, but they had restructured the position, and so it really would have been lateral.
Right.
And lo and behold, the heavens opened, and I got a call from Atlanta Tech, and I literally my salary doubled. And
Wow.
that taught me learn your worth, learn
Right.
your worth. Know, what you are bringing to the table, and don't let people downplay you. And you do have to have mentors. Every mentor doesn't necessarily have to be one of color, but you should have somebody in your circle that has gone up and knows exactly what to do, and what you have to deal with, what you've put up with. Now, this is a shocker. I remember when you referred to that Teacher of the Year
Yep.
piece. So we had to go on a conference. We went to a conference in Austin, Texas. So the hotel that we stayed at, and it shall remain nameless, every single executive director from the property I worked at in Atlanta was in Austin, Texas, and they did not look like me.
Wow.
And that's when I realized, I said, this thing is on lock. They are golfing, they are moving, they are raising kids together.
Yeah.
How can I penetrate this?
Right.
Now, I was out of the industry, but I was in education, but just to be able to be outside of it and see
Yeah.
4 of the directors and one was on their way to that property, let
Right.
me know, wow, this is very political. I was fighting against something that I didn't even know was there.
Yeah.
So I purposed to tell this same story to my students and say, hey, you better have a strategy. You
Right.
better have a plan,
Right.
because there's so many different little hicks and nooks that you don't even know about
Right.
that you're up against, and you'll be downplaying yourself thinking it's you. And it's like, no, they're just trying to make room because Becky got to sell her house.
Right. Right.
It was real. It was like that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's an emotional component there too, emotional intelligence component, because
Yeah.
those we our neighborhoods, the way we culturally interact is we a lot of times we wear our emotions on our shoulders, and when we get in these environments where the truth is not really coming directly at us, and then our feelings get hurt, sometimes we respond the way that we respond, which then
Yeah.
and sometimes is not the appropriate response. So in that educational component, we have to incorporate emotional intelligence in there, so
That's
that we're
true.
able to, when we come across those situations, know how to, as you said earlier, manage your tongue or hold your tongue, or
Exactly. And
but
how to compose yourself and keep,
right,
proper business etiquette.
right,
And
right,
my advisory chair, Nancy Lewis, she is a consultant and, SHRM certified HR person, and she does training on emotional intelligence. And she literally was, dropping gems to my students about this,
right,
the workplace politics, how you don't wear your emotions on your sleeve, and
right,
how you might do this and Bob will never say it, but he's just going to he's going to laugh and say, oh, he'll never get a promotion.
right,
You
right,
have to understand those dynamics. You have to know how to compose yourself.
right,
And we make sure that, hey, what are you going to do? And we tell them all the time, particularly the culinary students, you're going to run into this personality, one of our personalities, somewhere in industry. So
right.
you better learn how to master it and deal with it now,
Yeah. No, absolutely. That was hard for me early on in my career, because we didn't. I don't know how to argue, and if we go back and forth with words more than twice, that to
Yeah.
me, in my mind, now we're arguing. So now we're arguing, but in those cultural worlds, in the corporate
Yes.
world, that's not an argument. That's just dialogue. But
Yes.
it feels like when you talk down to me and you talk at me and you're demeaning me, it feels like an argument to me as a young man. And so once we start arguing now, that's a different switch. You flip that switch, and now you got a different dude.
Yeah.
But
I
that
had a
emotional
young
until you realize the game that is being played,
right.
and
And I had a young lady who she got hired for an apprenticeship, great opportunity, because, like I said, at the end of the day, workforce, ready is who we are and what we do. And so we had established an apprenticeship relationship with a local hotel. And the young lady um, was upset because she said, I'm not, I want to be a pastry chef. I'm not decorating cakes. I'm not with the pastry chef. I just go downstairs and I'm taking things out of a box and da 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 da. Da. And I said, ma'am, I had to go through 5,000 strawberries and make sure I got all the same size. I had to make sure mint sprigs looked exactly alike. You have to know that you're being tested.
Yeah.
And I said, and you have to have the temperament. And let's face it, this industry has to change because the millennials have changed.
Absolutely. No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Absolutely.
You know?
So let me ask you this: in terms of the hotel world, what are the opportunities, or what are the numbers, or or abilities to actually own hotels? Like, I see a lot of hotels that are franchised.
Yes.
But I don't know that we are aware of the process. What's the requirements, whether the capital requirement, credit scores, whatever the case may be, and or training to
Mhm.
become a hotel franchisee. Is that something that your school deals with as well?
Yes. So we had a group, choice groups, to come in and talk about minority hotel ownership. And you have a lot of the smaller franchise like Clarion and um, what else? Just the smaller brands that were giving opportunities to minorities to build their brand and build the portfolios.
Hmm.
And it was, even though, everybody has their preference of what type of lodging they would like to work in, it was a really good and up close and personal review of what it took to do
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And so we had someone come in and they spoke to the students about, and it was very much like um, any other franchise opportunity, like opening a Subway or something like that.
Hmm.
They told you how much money you had to have up front and, all of these different things. So it was a whole lot of knowledge and information given to the students to do that. The only issue with that, though, is that it was a particular type of brand, which is going to attract a particular type of market.
Right, right. The lower end
Whereas
brands, almost the motel kind of things, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
so students have aspirations and they want to do, more than to, be a part of a brand that's synonymous with X, Y, and Z.
Right.
It's a very small percentage. I want to say like 0.7 percent. It's not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when we have a relationship with the College of Bahamas, as the consulate of Bahamas actually was a student in my program. And one of the things we talked about was hotel ownership. And I was just like, oh, you guys are probably so, well off. How, do the employees have ownership and shares in the companies? Oh, they did
No.
not.
Wow.
So there was actually a very big controversy about the Bahamar Resort, where this Swiss peanut billionaire, built all of these, built this huge resort, and the people that were building the whole island, and uh, everything else, a part of it, were from China. So none of the Bahamians actually even got, it didn't even create jobs for them. I'm saying
Wow.
that. And so it was just, you know, heartbreaking to hear that.
Right.
And it's no
Absolutely.
different here. When you find out who owns a hotel, they're mostly foreign investors. But there are groups, there are consulting groups, there are lots of consulting groups, and I list them, in the syllabus with my students, that show these are consulting groups that have minorities that work with them,
Hmm.
or either they're minority, based or owned, and they can talk you through what they experience, the experience and exposure that they've gotten to hotel ownership.
Got you. Got you. Got you. So going forward, 2022 and beyond, where do you see the industry? Where do the students play a role in that? What what pearls of wisdom would you like to drop on my listeners so that they can potentially pursue careers in hotel, travel, tourism, or if they have uh, college age kids that are kind of floundering and looking for opportunities? What can you share?
So the industry is cyclical, and you have to know that first and foremost.
Oh wow.
We're going to go up and down, up and down. That's just the nature of the beast. So you have to know how to ride the waves. You have to know, okay, when this time comes, if I'm a chef and the restaurants are down, what can I do? Personal chefs have made a killing in this COVID climate right now, you know? Um, Fortunately and unfortunately, hotels had to lay a lot of people off,
Right.
but they are hiring big time right now.
Right now. Okay.
And I remember seeing the Ritz Carlton has been launching and blowing up my inbox with excursions. Their yacht excursion edition. Like seriously, yachts. They riding on yachts. So everybody is not hurting. And I thought that was really cool. I was like,
Right.
wow, I need to apply for this.
Right.
But
Right.
so you have a lot of companies. And like I tell my students, you better get a suitcase and you better get a passport and you better get outside of this country,
Right.
because there are opportunities everywhere. And if they can come over here and get a job and work and get the American experience, you can do that too. And you will be surprised, even in a COVID climate, people still need a task. They need a labor force. They need people to work.
Right.
So with the reorgs and the, COVID kind of calming down in some places, they are doing a lot of hiring now. So my thing is to keep your finger on the pulse, keep looking, apply, and stay connected, join groups. I tell them to join the Hotel and Lodging Association, the Restaurant Association, join different groups so you can kind of see what's going on, and it's not just privy to a particular group of people. You have access just like they do, so you can find out who's doing what. And get a mentor, get a 5-session mentor. Hey, can I talk to you? Can I have 5 sessions with you for 30 minutes just to talk to you, to find out how you got to where you are? Most people like to be on a soapbox and talk about their story, so they'll do that. So I'm telling them, you have the time. People have time. That food and beverage director, that general manager, that event coordinator who has virtually no business, they have time right now. So you need to reach out, you need to build relationships, and you need to build on those things.
Got you.
Because this is the time. And with the whole diversity and inclusion piece, I'm telling you, it's in the forefront of every lodging facility. They are, or brand, I should say, they are on it. They are really making sure that they meet what they're supposed to meet, because I don't know if you remember back in 2014, the late John Lewis, he passed a bill that kind of cut down on the whole J1 piece and said, hey, you guys need to make sure that these jobs represent the community in which it lies.
Right.
And so as a result, you saw the number of J1s dwindle, and you saw the number of people that look like us at the Marquis and at the Hyatt and all these different places.
Right. No, absolutely. Good stuff. So if someone is looking to get in touch with you, or if they're an employer looking for employees, should they contact you? Or
yes, absolutely.
Or go ahead.
Absolutely. They can reach me. I'm at Atlanta Tech, www.atlantatech.edu. If you go to directory, tjones@atlantatech.edu. This is what we do all day. We actually provide training for a lot of the local minority businesses and like Serve Safe and different things. We are, on the credit side and the non-credit side, we're there to serve the community.
So again, for those individuals out there that may be looking for employees,
yes,
contact Ms. Jones and reach out to her and make that connection so that she can send you some worthy candidates. Is there any last thing as we wind up? Is there anything that you want to say or highlight or expose to my listeners?
Well, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I think what you're doing is brilliant. I think that collaboration is a beautiful thing. This is how we grow. This is how we move. This is what, we need in order to move forward,
Absolutely.
To not focus on the old and to focus on the new. This new normal means so much now.
Yeah.
And for us in the industry, this is an opportunity. And I just really hope that we collectively will take advantage of it and change the face of it, because it's due time.
It's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done. Well, Tamoura Jones, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It was a pleasure speaking with you and meeting with you. I know we've talked over the last week or so, and I want to keep that relationship going. If there's anything that you need from me on my end, any collaborations, please don't hesitate. And we'll make some change. We gotta figure out our why. Like, why do we do what we do? And
That's
our passion, our mentoring, our education is a very important component of that.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up, I want to thank our sponsors again: Cornerstone Media, Cornerstone Productions, Cornerstone Business Labs. Drop that beat there, Marv. There it is. Ms. Jones, thank you very much. Let's give her a round of applause, everybody. And until we meet again, power to the people.